Daryl Morey is off an incredible offseason in which he's added names like Paul George, Caleb Martin, Andre Drummond, and plenty more, but Sixers fans have still been anxiously waiting to see who that final roster spot will be filled by. Well, we now know that Gershon Yabusele will be filling up that roster spot for the Sixers team, fresh off an impressive Olympic run in which he even put LeBron James on a poster in that gold medal match. I want to break down exactly what this means for the Sixers team, why he could be the missing power forward that so many of us have been pounding the table and screaming for, talk a little bit about why he did not stick in the NBA for his first opportunity, which he spent with the Boston Celtics, and why he's shown some notable improvement since that point. Now, I want to start off with the initial report from Adrian Wojnarowski here, which gave us this update that free agent forward Gershon Yabusele has agreed to a one-year, $2.1 million minimum deal with the Philadelphia 76ers, sources tell ESPN. Yabusele is rejoining the NBA's Eastern Conference after leaving the Boston Celtics for Real Madrid back in 2018. Now, there is much more to this story than just that, and I do want to dive into why he's really taking a chance on himself and everything else. But real quick, let's take a word from our sponsor. We'll be right back on the other side. Listen, guys, we all have bad habits, and sometimes the easier they are to access, the harder they are to break. That's why I wanted to introduce you to our new friends over at Fume, who are a flavored air device with no nicotine, no vapor, and completely non-toxic flavors. If vapor is the sticky soda in your body, then Fume is like the herbal tea. Fume is backed up by doctors in the USA and also continuously invests in third-party studies to ensure the safety of their product. There have been over 300,000 customers thus far, and you could be the next success story. With flavors like crisp mint, orange vanilla, raspberry lemon, and plenty more, there's truly something for everyone. Whether you desire that oral fix, the need to fidget, or just like the award-winning flavors, Fume could be for you. Fill the void in a natural, guilt-free way, as our Philadelphia sports teams give us plenty of reasons to worry about our own health already. For a limited time, use my code DIGEST to get your free topper. It's the perfect accessory to your Fume device. Slip it onto the mouthpiece for a softer, warmer feel. It's chewable for those of you who like to fidget, and it's reusable. Head to tryfume.com, that's tryfum.com, and use code DIGEST, or scan the QR code on your screen right now to get your free Fume topper when you order your Journey Pack today. So I think many of us were operating under the assumption that it was likely going to be Marcus Morris to fill out that final roster spot for the Sixers team. And for the sake of clarity here, I will note that they do only have 14 players under roster. There still is technically that 15th roster spot available, and I'm sure will be filled by the conclusion of the season. But Daryl Morey has said it himself that he wants to keep that roster slot open heading into the season for some flexibility, both for financial reasons and more so from the trade market. That if there is a situation and they want to bring back 2 players in exchange for 1, or bring back 2 players in exchange, or 3 players in exchange for 2, something like that, or if there's, a player that is itching for an opportunity on a minimum that you otherwise would not expect, as is happening around the league with names like Gary Trent, even a guy like Kelly Oubre throughout there last year. So basically, he wants to keep those options open. So Marcus Morris has not received that opportunity, and that was kind of the lingering thought in my back of my mind of, if that was going to happen, why didn't already? And we now know why, as Gershon Yabusele is the name that was brought here. So once again, we did get this update from Woj to kind of break the news, but then we got a little more clarity that I specifically want to point out from Shams Charania here. So he starts out in the quote that he initially quote tweeted here, which he said, "Just in, France's Gershon Yabusele is in serious talks on a deal with the Philadelphia 76ers, league sources tell The Athletic and Stadium. Yabusele is resolving his $2.5 million contract buyout with Real Madrid as he nears an NBA return." And Shams quote tweets that to say, "Yabusele helped lead the French national team to the silver medal at the Paris Olympics, averaging 14 points and receiving significant interest from multiple teams in recent weeks. The 2016 number 16 overall pick is on the cusp of joining the 76ers after playing for Boston in 2017 to 2019. So we now have confirmation of that actually going down. And there's a couple things that I do want to hit on there. Number one, deservedly getting the interest from multiple NBA teams. That this was not something that the Sixers were the only team to express interest. That means that Yabusele chose the Sixers in this situation. And it does make sense given the context of this team. That all we have done is pound the table about how much this team needs a power forward, and he can fit that bill. That he measures in at 6'8", has a 7'2" wingspan. That is some really intriguing size. And I do want to talk about kind of his path previously that we did see, and he popped to me at the Olympics from watching him, not just in that gold medal game, but every time I watched France, which to be perfectly honest, that was the number 2 team I flipped on just to watch Wembanyama and see that. He was kind of like the co-star that they needed there, that he's got a little creation ability off the dribble. He's a guy that plays with some real deal athleticism, rebounds the ball at a really pugnacious level that he competes on the boards, which is something that if that applies to the NBA, there will be a role for him in this Sixers team. Now, we do know that he did play some time with the Boston Celtics from 2017 to 2019. And I do want to pull up those stats here. Not a ton to go off based on this. That playing in just 33 games as a rookie. Once again, he was the number 16 overall pick. And then 41 games in his second season there. Split time between the G League. There were two things that stood out here during his first opportunity. Number one, the three-point shot just straight up was not good enough. Overall, just 32.3% on 65 attempts. Not enough over a 2-year sample size. And this was something that he's taken strides and shown some notable improvement for over in Europe since leaving to this point. And the other thing that really was not fully in place at his first go-round in the NBA, he just wasn't at the required level of fitness. That he's naturally a big dude. And I will say from the version of Yabusele that we saw at the Olympics, he looked cut, he looked swole, he looks athletic, far more than was the case in his first time in the NBA. He was highly regarded as kind of one of these international prospects that teams were itching to take a chance on. The Celtics ended up being that team, taking him with that 16th pick, and did not get things paid out for him. Now, I don't want to put too much weight into these overseas stats because it is a very different game over here, but just to give an idea of what he's looking, most notably I want to look at those 3-point numbers because as I mentioned, that was the driving force for why he was out of the NBA. And overall, these being his stats with Real Madrid, where he won a championship over there in Spain, you can see that the numbers look pretty impressive on relatively high sample size. Overall, during his time there, shooting 41.1%, and that's on 406 total 3-point attempts. That's enough for me to at least believe it to be the case. The shot looked pure to me in the Olympics, and once again, the worst case situation here is the guy doesn't work and you find somebody else. That this is worth taking a chance on. He's 28 years old. That does feel a nice middle ground to me of we're not adding these end-of-the-road veterans, which I think would have been the case with a Marcus Morris, but this also isn't a guy that you're waiting for the future. He is what he is as a basketball player, but he's still got some youth, still got some athleticism, and is a guy that is in a win-now zone. So I do like that they're middling the ground. And the other part that I did want to note from this Shams Charania report here, once again pulling it up, is about that buyout contract that he had with Real Madrid. So this is pretty standard with a lot of international teams. There's kind of this dance that tends to be done overseas that teams want to protect themselves from players getting the opportunity to just hop back to the NBA. We know that the NBA is a little bit more prestigious from an on-court standpoint, and more so than that the money that comes with it is something that is even more appealing than that. Well, what's notable about that $2.5 million contract buyout is that the Sixers cannot full out pay that themselves. The max that they are allowed to spend is $850,000, still a notable chunk of change, but what this means is the rest has to come out of Yabusele's pocket. So what that means is he wants to come to the NBA really bad. That when you break down what he's actually going to be bringing in, it's going to be less than $1 million this year, which is really rare in today's NBA. That does not happen. Think about a veteran's minimum, which is what he technically signed, $2.1 million, and he's going to be sending about 1.7 right back to Spain to make sure that he can even come over in the first place. This is very clearly him taking a chance on himself. And again, this is not uncommon. I know Patrick Beverley is a guy that's been very open about it, spoke about it on his podcast, that when he got his first opportunity, before even signing on the dotted lines, he had to take out a full multi-million-dollar loan himself to pay his out contract and was basically like, I need to make sure this is my path. So it's certainly a gamble on himself. It is clear that he has been itching at getting back to the NBA. He sent this tweet out during the Olympics when they were starting to get the whispers of teams showing some interest in Gershon, that he's been waiting for a second chance. I'm ready. And he has the little dancing bear or the emoji next to it. That is one of his nicknames. And shout out to Austin Krell of 97.3 who tweeted out these stats here, saying that Gershon Yabusele shot 32% from 3 in 2 seasons with the Celtics before heading overseas. He proceeded to shoot 41% from 3 in 5 EuroLeague seasons, but on volume that trended towards relative insignificance by NBA standards. His nickname is the Dancing Bear. Now, I do think that the sample size is a little bit more worth paying attention to than Austin is giving credit in that tweet there. He's not a guy that's going to be expected to lace up 5 threes a game. He's going to have certain opportunities where he has an open catch and shoot. You have to be at least willing as a shooter. This can't be a Ben Simmons or a PJ Tucker situation in which teams are straight up ignoring you on the perimeter. But the bottom line is he's not coming here to be a scorer. He's going to be doing it with his athleticism, with his size, and rebounding is going to be at the top of that list. Now, the rebounding numbers don't jump off the page when looking at what he's done in Europe, but once again, I do want to put into context that it is a very different game over there, and simply from the fewer shots, the pace of the game, there's just a lot of things to go into it. I'll speak from my eye test from watching him in the Olympics. I was really impressed with the level that he rebounded bounce the basketball. And if he brings that level of effort and energy over to the NBA, there's a place for him in the Sixers rotation. Now, for the time being, he's the 14th man on roster. That we shouldn't be setting our expectations super high for Gershon, but I do think this is a more of a swing than I think most would have expected. This guy has an opportunity to be a far more impactful player than a typical 14th man on roster that you're signing to that point. So there's a couple things that I really like about it overall. One factor here is it does feel like the Celtics are always that team kind of getting the Sixers scraps in a team that works. Would be really cool if he's able to rewrite his story and end up being an impact player wearing a Sixers uniform and being a little bit of that, stabbing in the back of Boston or however you want to word it there. I do think he has the right focus, that clearly there's something that's churned in him mentally, that he's a little more locked in than was the case in his first NBA go-around. He's very clearly hungry and betting on himself, which I think is as great a motivation as you can have. And then just purely from like an archetype of player and skill set standpoint, this is a different style than that they've had on roster. That it would have been more of the same if to compare him to Marcus Morris again. That's a guy that you know what you're getting. He'll shoot some threes. He's a professional bucket getter. He can score. But when you look at Gershon, that he is a guy that is going to be an athletic body, is real deal 6'8". Obviously, we are setting the bar really high with this type of situation I'm throwing out there, but I'm still not sold on the perimeter defense for the Sixers team in certain situations. Yes, Paul George and his improvement over a guy like Tobias Harris. Yes, Caleb Martin is a dog on the perimeter. There's guys that can contend, but when having like a big body, a 6'8" guy who is physical, it does make himself felt on that end of the floor. That's just a nice option to have in the back of your pocket there. So very much looking forward to that being a weapon that Nick Nurse and Daryl Morey can deploy. Very excited that Gershon is so itching that he chose the Sixers and is ready to rewrite his NBA legacy here. And I do think Daryl Morey hit it out of the park this entire offseason. This is the perfect cherry on top to the Sixers offseason. We will see what his role looks like on the Sixers team, but I do think that this was a much better swing than just signing an end-of-the-road veteran, which you know what you're going to getting. Ultimately, we will see how things shake out when he does take the floor for the Sixers team. I do think when push comes to shove, when everything comes down to it, if they do fall short, it will not be on the shoulders of Yabusele, that we will much be talking about the Joel Embiids, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxeys. But the point being that you got to give these guys as much ammunition as possible. And I think this was another example of Daryl Morey just doing just that. So appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning into this video here. If you have not already, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button on the channel, dropping a like on this video, and any comments you have below. And I'll be talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.